Matthew, are you ready?
I am ready as you are.
Okay, let's do this. Welcome to another episode of the Rap Thought Podcast, brought to you by Matt and Brandon, and sponsored by Wine Gorilla.
WineGorilla.com. Pick up those wine cans.
Just a little shout out there. Not really by anyone else as of right now, but you know, we'll get there.
We'll get there in time. I can see it now. Mm-hmm. We're going to be advertising underwear and T-shirts and podcast platforms, all kinds of stuff.
You should definitely model the banana hammock. I mean, I don't know why you bring up underwear, but
the Rap Thought Podcast banana hammock.
Yeah,
let's do it.
By Matt. Yeah. Want to thank everyone out there for tuning in to us and giving us a listen, seeing a lot of love out there, which is super cool. Definitely see views going up and stuff. So if this is your first time listening to us, we take a look at an album, whether if we've heard it before or not. This one, for me at least, I have not. Matt, have you?
Yes, I actually have a funny, not a funny, but I have an interesting history with this album from when I was a kid.
Okay.
So we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to all of our first-time listeners out there. And like Brandon said, we focus on albums, and we choose the albums at random out of a hat, unless it's a new album and we want to do it. And then we don't just focus on classic albums as well. We've done a lot of albums that are unknown for the most part, or they're just one of the albums that are cool in the artist's discography, but they're not necessarily their classic albums. And then we have done some classic albums. So I think we have a good range and a good mix of different types of albums that we do.
Probably biased, but I mean, I like it. So, but yeah, as I was saying until I was rudely interrupted. But yeah, if this is your first time, this is what we do. So we just kind of tune in. We don't talk about the album beforehand and we chop it up. So this is our genuine conversation about these albums. We do that on purpose.
Right. Yeah, it's been really fun. I've really enjoyed digging in deeper to a lot of these albums, even if they're albums that I've already listened to and I've loved. It's cool doing it in the context of, okay, I'm gonna dissect every single verse and every single song and really dig into what the artist is trying to convey, which is different than a normal listening. Usually when you listen to music, it's pretty passive. You know, you're just listening. You're not trying to sit there and focus on a certain lyric or a song and trying to understand everything, because it takes a little bit more effort to do that, and music isn't always necessarily about effort.
And then when you read the lyrics on top of that, can totally change your thing. So this week we're doing Cypress Hill. We're doing Black Sunday, which was released in July of 1993. And so with that said, this is one of those ones where I was listening to and I was like, yeah, okay, cool. But then I started reading the lyrics and I was like, damn, like this is this is kind of the same thing over and over again.
Right.
But that just shaped my music experience with this album when I did that.
But the thing is you've heard some of these songs throughout your whole life. Whether you've realized it or not, you've heard these songs because they were everywhere. Namely, Insane in the Brain. That was a gigantic song from when it came out all the way to now.
And they weren't expecting that to be that big either. Right. They were saying that Sony approached them and said, hey, this is the song that we want to put out as your single. And Be Real was saying like, you know, you kind of have to put ego aside, because sometimes when you create an album, you're making these tracks, you're putting your life and everything into it. There's things that you see, but he respected the outside perspective and was like, all right, like if that's what y'all want, we can do that.
Right. What's interesting is I don't even know what other song would be a single on this album. You know, I'm surprised they even put out a single for this album.
Yeah.
It's very violent and in your face, and you know, it's like watching the movie Scarface. You know what I mean? There's some humor in it. There's violence. There's drugs. You know what I mean? It's all of those things that we love in our entertainment.
I think I'm gonna spoil it for him. It's Gats, Putting People in Their Place, and Smoking Weed is the
Yeah.
album. We could roll the credits right here, but we're not
Yeah.
going to do that.
No.
But that's essentially what you're going to be getting into.
We got more to
here.
talk about with this album.
More to that. So, yeah, man. I mean, when it comes to Cypress Hill, like you said, there's tracks out there and stuff that they've done. Like Be Real's done a track on Space Jam, on the Space Jam soundtrack. And when I was like, oh wait, yeah, he did. Okay. When can you remember the earliest point that you heard Cypress
Yeah,
Hill?
so I definitely heard Cypress Hill when I was a kid, maybe in kindergarten or even first grade on the radio, listening to K-Rock.
You remember kindergarten listening to Cypress Hill?
Yes, I do, because this is why. Because I had an older brother. He's about 4 years older than me. And we would always listen to the radio station K-Rock, KROQ, 106.7 in LA. And even though that's a rock station, they would cross over and play like Beastie Boys and Cypress Hill. They would play Insane in the Brain. So I remember listening to the radio with my brother and hearing this song and being like, what the fuck is this? This is crazy. Like, this is some crazy shit. And I actually had this CD. This is one of the first CDs that I got as a kid, probably first grade, maybe even younger. I don't know how. That's what I was trying to think. How the hell did I get a hold of this album?
Andy did not buy you this in first grade.
Yeah, my mom probably didn't know what it was. I'm thinking my brother got it for me, or he got a hold of it somehow. That's what I'm thinking, because otherwise I don't think my mom would take me to Sam Goody's or Tower Records and buy me this album.
You're
know?
basically the reason that the parental advisory got put on there, because
So I had this album, but I don't remember listening to it that much. I remember listening to it in my room a few times, with headphones on and a portable CD player. But I don't think I got really into it because I didn't really understand it. I didn't understand the lyrics and what they're talking about. I think I just kind of liked how it sounded. And I liked Insane in the Brain. That's kind of like, when you're a kid, that's like a fun song. It sounds funny. So, yeah, that's my experience with first listening to Cypress Hill. And, yeah, since then, I've never really gotten into them. You know what I mean? Like, I never really paid attention to their career or followed all their albums or anything like that. Which is crazy because they're a legendary hip-hop group. They're well-respected in the hip-hop world.
Do you see yourself doing it now?
No, not necessarily. I really dig the production, and I really liked Be Real's voice because it's so unique. But there's not a lot of content in here that's going to grab my attention. I think this, very similar to Mac Dre, is I want to hear some of these songs at parties or when I'm chilling with certain people. Then yeah, throw on a few of these Cypress Hill songs and it'll be great.
It reminded me of the playlist era that we've talked about quite a few times, where you are having similar tracks and they may be on an album, but like it's to kind of keep the plays going. And when I was looking into this one, so they were still, for one, let's go back a little bit. So Cypress Hill, they're based in LA. The name of their group comes off of two streets that they grew up around. And so you have your members, Be Real, DJ Muggs, and Sen Dog. So those are your three primary people. I think it looked like a fourth person that joined later on, but in terms of Black Sunday, those are the three we'll be focusing on. So, so with those three, Be Real, he dropped out of high school, joined a gang, started putting out music and everything. Met up with Sen Dog. They started making tracks together. DJ Muggs, they met up with him, and that's when things started cracking. Everything. Probably just said a lot of too much stuff. Anyways, so the three of them get together. They're the first Latino group to put out a triple platinum album. And I think what I was originally going to say was that they are the first hip-hop group to have 2 albums in the top 10. So they were coming off of the success of their first album. And in one of the interviews I was watching, they were saying they were on tour with Naughty by Nature, and the label called them and said, hey, you guys need to come back early and start putting this music out. in order to ride this wave and keep the momentum going. So they came off tour, they started working. There was a lot of distractions in LA, so they had to move around a little bit, but they got their album put out. And Insane in the Brain was their single, and as we said, that wasn't what they were expecting to blow up, but it did.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how they just blew up like that. Even though their first album was a success, they did sell a lot of albums with the song How Could I Just Kill a Man?
I think that was the second or in the top 4.
Yeah. So that was a pretty big song for them on their first album. But yeah, Insane in the Brain took them to a whole nother level. It was a crossover hit, basically. It took them into pop music territory instead of just urban or hip hop, which then projects them into a whole different ballgame of, selling millions of records and having their music played everywhere. And
I think one of the reasons why you mentioned that as a kid you heard them on rock stations, and in an interview with DJ Muggs, he was talking about the success of Cypress Hill, and he was saying that in the 90s when they were doing their music, they weren't getting a lot of radio play, so they were relying on college DJs and other smaller platform people to put their music out. So when they would go on tour, they would tour with different groups, whether if it was hip hop, whether if it was rock, and they would go out and do their thing. And sometimes they did their shows for free. And he was saying, a lot of people, they're against doing that because, it's not money in my pocket right now. But if you look at planting the seeds later on to get people interested in your music, if you look at merchandising, if you look at CD sales of what's already out, then you're still making money. It's just not money in hand.
Right.
So he's making that point.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It was a great hustle. And it reminded me of NWA because they also weren't getting radio play either because of their content.
Yeah, if you especially in the early 90s, if you're putting out music like this, you're not going to get a lot of radio play for the most part. And they broke through that glass ceiling with Insane in the Brain, which is kind of crazy to think about. That's a wild thing to happen. And like you said, they weren't counting on that. They didn't really. They weren't foretelling that was going to happen with that song when they made it.
Though I forgot to add. So when making Black Sunday, they were saying that this album was actually pretty rushed because they were pulled off tour and they wanted to ride that. So I think he was saying that with the first album they had a couple of years to work on it, but then with this one they completed it in 3 to 4 months. So it wasn't. He's like, I usually like to spend more time We'd like to spend more time putting out albums, but we had to get this one out immediately.
Right. Yeah, that's wild. DJ Muggs is incredible. His production is just insane. We're gonna get into it for each song, but yeah, he definitely carried this album.
That's what I was gonna say.
And Cypress Hill, and and all the work he's done after Cypress Hill or beyond them. He's worked with a lot of different artists. He's done one of my favorite albums that Jizza has done is he did an album with DJ Muggs producing, and that was a super dope album.
And similar to DJ Premier, he's also gone outside of hip hop and worked with different groups. So some of his noted as Depeche Mode. I worked with a kid whose family really liked that group.
I love Depeche Mode too.
I have to check them out.
I don't know if you like them, but they're very white and they're very 80s.
He played me a couple tracks, and I was like, "Yeah, man, nah." But
they're dope.
I gotta take a look. It might be cool. So, but yeah, I think. I just think this group, they're cool. I don't know. Like, there's just some tracks. Most of the tracks I'll say like I didn't really mess with, but we'll get into that as we go along. Before we start, Matt, do you know what Black Sunday is?
No, I don't.
Black Sunday had to do with the Dust Bowl. So in the 1930s, that's when there was a huge drought. It's one of the worst droughts in North American history. And so they had this saying that was, hey, if you plow, then the rains will come. And so that was during World War I when they depleted all the fields of wheat for everything. And so that dust storm it came from Canada, and the cold winds meshed with stuff that was happening in the States and then blew all the soil and everything. It was saying that it was like 1,000-mile long storm that was blowing around with winds over 100 miles per hour. And so because they were plowing all the fields, and because there hadn't been a rain in a long time, and they had pulled everything up, there wasn't any soil down there to keep everything down. So when those winds came, it just blew everything at people. So they were loading their faces up with Vaseline. They were putting covers on their like sheets on their doors and their windows to help protect them from that. But because they were inhaling all of that stuff, like, it killed off a lot of people. So Black Sunday refers to the Dust Bowl where all this happened, where it's
Gotcha.
the crops, the people, it just messed everything up.
Okay.
Do you know what that has to do with this album?
No.
Nothing.
I'm hoping you would be able to explain that to me.
Nothing.
I don't think they meant that to be related. I think it probably has to do more with because when you look at the album cover, it's very there's a lot of
Desolate.
death involved, and there's a skull, and it's like the Reaper, or things of that nature. So Black Sunday to me would be, because Sunday is supposed to be a holy day, Black Sunday would be, I guess, the antithesis of that would be unholy day or something like that, because of their content and what they're talking about, what they're rapping about.
I think I probably went above and beyond and didn't need to. But sometimes, like, you listen to, in these pods, like, we listen to an album and you look at songs, like, I wonder why it's called that. What are they saying in it? What does the chorus say? Why did they name their album this? Okay, what's Black Sunday? And that's what I got. And then you realize that has nothing to do with the entire album. So then, we'll come back to this at the end. But I was looking for what this album is about. And I didn't. I had challenges finding that.
All right. Well, I think we should jump right in to the first track.
You want to get high?
Which is I Want to Get High.
I want to get high.
Dude, I fucking love this song. I actually really love weed songs. Even though I don't smoke weed myself. That's a disclaimer. But I love weed songs. I just love the vibe. I love that it's usually always a mellow beat. And they're usually funny or they're interesting because of their admiration and their love for weed. They get creative with how they want to make songs about that.
They very much advocate for the legalization of hemp, marijuana in this
that's a big
parts of this
theme.
album.
It only took them, 30 years to make that happen?
Yeah, right. It took a long time. I'm glad that they're still alive to see it happen, though.
Yeah.
But, when I heard this song and heard B Real's voice, I was like, he has a very unique voice, and I really like it. I could see some people thinking it's annoying, but I like voices that stand out.
Oh, but you don't like Beastie Boys.
They're annoying, as I was saying. Voices that aren't annoying.
Well, B Real's that's not his real voice.
That's what
pitches it.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at when I was listening to his interviews. He sounds nothing like that.
Yeah.
Voice
He did that because I think it was Sendog that told him he should rap in that voice because it sounds better. Than B Real was like, all right, I'll do that.
His voice would be pretty cool. It'd be pretty baritone, but it'd be cool.
Yeah.
His voice reminds me of I think Tito from Friday After Next or Next Friday. Mm-hmm. The guy that wears his beanie like down to here. Stuff. But I thought, I also don't smoke, but if I did, this would be on my playlist for getting high.
Yeah.
I like the forward motion, make you sway like the ocean. The herb is more than a powerful potion. And I was like, all right, that's cool. That's cool.
Dude, weed raps are the best.
Yeah.
I'm always down for weed raps.
But yeah, they got great flow. I could see me blaze into this.
Yeah, the bass and the drums are amazing on this. And I love the high-pitched horns. It's so early 90s. To have that sound. Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of producers are using that, the high pitched horns coming in,
and it still sounds good today.
Yeah, it's not annoying. Sometimes it can be annoying, but yeah, it sounds great. It's a dope song. It's a cool way to start the album.
I thought it set a good tone for it.
Well, it's interesting because doing this podcast and going over all the albums that we've done, it's either album starts off very high paced, high tempo, in your face with the intro track, or it kind of subtly brings you into the album, kind of holds your hand and walks you into it rather than shoving it in your face. Mm-hmm. So I feel like there's two different ways of starting an album.
I think so. I think it's a good way to start a show too. Like I could just see like as everyone's still walking and pouring in that this is just kind of going on the background, and then they come out and then just start going at it.
Yeah, because that's a good way to think about it is movie intros. There's some movies they start with the action. There's some kind of action scene where you're thrown right into it, and then afterwards you understand why they're in that action scene. Or the movie starts with you just meeting the character and they're doing something mundane. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I like that. Number 2, I Ain't Going Out Like That.
And this is where the violence comes in. Straight away.
Sounds scary.
They're basically saying, I'm not going out like a sucker. If you come at me, I'm going to kill you.
Know that I'll come with the static, erratic, 45 automatic, screaming at you, red lights beaming at you. Mm-hmm. And so I like some of the lyrics in it, but there was a progression for me. So the first song is like, okay, we're smoking weed, we're doing this. Second track starts introducing the GAT specifically. Yeah. And I don't know, I'll keep commenting as we go along, but I did like the Billy Ray Cypress Hill play on words. I thought that was kind of funny. So they got some humor kind of sprinkled here and there, but basically like, they're not going out like that, and they'll pull out on some punks and whatever.
I like the hook. I like Sendog in the background with his he has a deeper voice than Be Real, and it's a good dynamic with them both when they're both on a song. I actually really like it. Sendog he does have verses on this album, definitely not as much as Be Real. And some of the songs, Sendog is pretty much just the hype man. He's pretty akin to Flavor Flav.
And if I remember right, he doesn't have any more than one verse on a track. Like sometimes it'll switch off in other groups where now I'm gonna.
But it's a dope. He's almost as if he's the seasoning. You throw a little seasoning on there just to spice things up a bit.
A little salt and pepper.
Yeah. Not salt and pepper. Sendog would be something else, like Cajun spice or something.
Tahini. So, and I don't know. Then we go on to Insane in the Brain, and that is, if you've heard this song, if you know Cypress Hill, you've heard this song. That's their jam.
Even if you don't know Cypress Hill, you've heard this song. Mm-hmm. If you've been alive in the last 20 plus years, you've heard this many times.
And I think at the start of this song, or starting with this song, I started to create stories for all the tracks because they'll it's repetition of like, okay, I'm gonna pull the gat on this person, and I got a grave plot ready for you, and I don't play around. But for this one, it was like, okay, he tries to stay away from the 40 because it makes him lose it. Now he's talking about dodging the cops and gets mad when they raid his shit for his crops when he's not there. I laughed at that. I thought that was funny. But they're just down to do crazy shit and fuck you up. That's what I got from that. And the song,
it was originally supposed to be a diss track.
Yeah, for Chubb Rock, because they interpreted one of his songs as a diss, but I don't think it actually was.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And I think Be Real, at least took offense to that because it was someone that he respected coming up and then got dissed by him. And so they came out with this. So I guess it's the only one where they talk about this and it's directed at someone in particular. Mm-hmm. So
it's a classic hip hop song. This song will live on forever. It's in the Hall of Fame. And it's a great song. It's simple. It's catchy. The hook is great. And something that I didn't know that I found out doing this research for this podcast is they sampled a horse for that screeching sound.
Oh,
it's
really?
not a horn. Yeah. So they took a horse sound and high pitched it. And I was like, wow, that's pretty creative.
That's kind of cool. All right.
I like the lines. He says, like Louis Armstrong played the trumpet, I'll hit that bong and break you off something. I just think that's really funny.
Yeah, he's breaking people off. But like I said, in every track, because when the shit goes down, I thought of that song boom, boom, boom. Everybody say ayo, ayo.
Yeah,
It
that's a
made me
great
think
song.
of that track. I don't know if I should have checked to see if it was sampled from it, but
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, like speaking of samples, I love the sample in this song, and I love that it's a laid back beat, kind of more vibey, and but then with the content, it's storytelling about shootings and surviving the streets and surviving their environment. Basically saying that, you know, when shit's turning up, they don't back down and they hold their ground and they have, you know, means of protecting themselves, or, you know, they have weapons on them. They're not afraid to use them.
and it sounds like they've been around the block with this quite a bit, because you
Yeah.
get the sense of there's a line where he's talking about bullets lodged in his closet. So it gives me a visualization of like drive-by shootings, people spraying the house, and it's like, all right, I've done this.
Right.
But yeah, like this is the second track too. I mean, we're only on track 4, where he mentions that he doesn't want to kill anybody, but he will if he has to, and he'll come out blasting like
Right.
Yosemite Sam.
Yeah.
So
He's very free with his lyrics about shooting people. You know.
very generous about it. Living on fat pockets on the flat with the gat, rolling around 9 Deuce Cadillac. So living good, but not afraid to
Right.
check.
He still has a foot in the street life. It's basically what he's saying.
Yeah. And when the shit goes down, you have to be down to lick a shot off.
Yeah. Right.
Zippity doo-dah, zippity hey. And I kind of like that because, you know, zip, that's like when you're making the noise for a bullet, I guess. I don't know. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. No, I love the bass line in this. It is more street raps. It's more shooting. It's more gang life. But it's dope to listen to. You know what I mean? If the beats weren't good, I wouldn't enjoy this album as much as I do. You know what I mean? I don't know how you feel, but you know, the lyrics, they almost become secondary. You know, I'm more paying attention to the beats and the overall vibe of the song and how Be Real's voice sounds with the beat, rather than he's talking about shooting people, which I can't relate to at all. But I don't think that's the point. You know, it's similar to watching a violent movie. Yeah, you can't relate to anything in there, but you can enjoy it.
I see what you're saying. Like, I mean, I'm thinking of a movie like I'm being enriched with the storyline. So if I'm thinking of The Departed and all these people start dying at the end, it's like, okay, shit, because like one person was double crossing, one person was covering stuff up, and one person was a rat, as
Right.
as you know, as said in the movie. But like with this one, to me, it's more like senseless stuff of like, all right, this is just gang shit. But like,
you're thinking of a story in terms of it being linear. I think they could still be telling a story through all these songs. It doesn't have to be linear. They don't all have to connect to one starting point and ending point. You know what I mean? Like
they
each
don't.
song could be its own story of how they feel in a certain situation.
That's true, but I mean every story, which I felt like I had to construct myself out of like, you know, 2 bars worth. It wasn't anything, but this is subjective, of course, but it wasn't anything significant to where I'm like, okay, like I care about that. So I think for me, I agree with you where the production kind of took me. I'm captivated more in this album by the production than I am the lyrics, because it was just a repetition of the same stuff. Like, okay, gat here, gravesite here, this and that. But the beats were all different with similar elements, but they were all different.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like with this one, like it was like I get the idea that shots rang out. He wants to retaliate on whoever let them off. So now he's on a mission to do that. And he brings that up later on where it's like he's talking about an apprentice and like that dude fucks up. So now he has to go and tune him up. But like it's, I don't know. He says the golden rule is to never turn your back on the streets. Sunday it's raining. He's on the hunt for a dude. So I do, with this one, as I'm looking at my notes, like there was more of a story in this. But
Right.
I feel like I really had to dig for it. But not in the way that we're looking at, say, like Black Thought or where I'm like really deciphering lyrics to get that. It's like, okay, you said this and this, so I'm just going to assume this is the big picture.
Right. You got to piece things together a little bit more and read in between the lines.
And this one though, like he also talks about like a dream state. So he, like in the second and third verse, it's like he gets caught, he gets shot, wakes up in a casket, but then that wasn't real. He wakes up and there's a beam on his forehead. So he actually is in trouble. And then I even ended my notes of not sure what to make of all this, if I even got that right. So, but apparently he died. I think he dies in the end. So that's the story that I got out of there.
Yeah, it could just be a short story of gang life, basically.
And before you lick a shot, Matthew, what do you have to do
You gotta
to the gun?
cock the hammer.
You have to cock the hammer.
Maybe this is some Pulp Fiction stuff going on here.
Oh shit!
Or now we're gonna see why he's licking a shot.
So yeah, on this one, don't get him started because he'll cock the hammer and shove it up your anus, and then bury your bones to cover the evidence. So aside from other songs where it's like I got a grave plot put out for you,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna bury you. So, but yeah, they're basically ready to. I like that they're basically ready to stick their steel toe boots in your ass like a dildo and have the cannon ready for action if need be.
Yeah. Dude, they don't hold back.
Yeah, man. I don't need any cocked hammers.
Right.
Around
You know
me.
what's crazy is comparing this album to, let's say, Enter the Wu-Tang, which came out in the same year. Enter the Wu-Tang is also violent and it's street life, but there's a little bit more substance to the lyrics.
There's more substance and there's more variety. So one of the things I put down was that like they don't even have the obligatory love track in this album.
Well,
I don't know if
neither does Enter the Wu-Tang. Enter the Wu-Tang is a very violent album, but all the Wu-Tang members have a foundation of religion and other spiritual undertones that they bring to all of their lyrics, which I think makes them a little bit more unique. And they bring in the background of kung fu films and from the 70s and things like that. So they incorporate a little bit more than just violence, whereas this is just straight to the point, violence in your face. But I could see the comparisons because, like the song Method Man on Enter the Wu-Tang, he's talking about torturing someone.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm gonna put a hanger on the stove for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, you know, it's a very violent song.
But
You know
it's
what I mean?
not real though. Like this one, I feel like they're selling it in a way there's humor laced throughout the album for sure.
And there's weed songs interwoven between all the violent songs.
But it doesn't. Some of the content doesn't come off as like a joke. Like no one's gonna sit there and be like, "Yeah, man, Matt's fucked up. Go heat the hanger up. It's going up his ass." Like no one's. I don't think anyone's really gonna do that.
Well, yeah, Be Real is trying to sell it like he's really doing this stuff. You know, he's not trying to be facetious or anything like that.
But that's my point, though, is that like if he's selling it to be real, but then they're doing it to kind of be a joke. That's where I'm more on board with it because like I don't, like you said, like I've never killed anybody and I don't live that, so I don't. It doesn't relate to me. So I guess if I don't relate to it, I naturally don't relate. This doesn't settle well. But I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's just not my cup of tea. But I don't know. Speaking of Wu-Tang, did you get kind of a hint of, like, through the production, did you get a hint of Wu-Tang Clan and,
like RZA's production in here a little bit?
Yeah, and some Tribe as well?
A little bit. I actually get a little bit more Bomb Squad and Public Enemy production influences in this because Wu-Tang was probably made at the same time that this was made. So I don't think Muggs was somehow listening to RZA's unreleased music.
No, not at all. But I mean, just like similarities between.
Yeah.
Like I kind of got the similar vibes, but only in a few, not all tracks, but a few.
They're
of
both
them.
grimy. Both of these albums, production, Enter the Wu-Tang and Black Sunday, it's grimy, it's gritty, it's dusty, it's funky. They both have funky bass lines.
Pretty funky.
Yeah, so I can see the parallels there.
Yeah.
For sure.
We have Lockdown coming up, and I don't know. What did you think of Lockdown? Just with the title, it's an interlude, so there aren't any lyrics. If you haven't listened, but
I don't know. I didn't really read too much into it. I just really enjoyed the beat. I thought it was a dope instrumental. I wish there was more beats like this on here. I think it's a little break from just to relax you a little bit, because they probably know you for the last 3 songs they've been going at you pretty hard with the shootings and the gang life. So now they're like, okay, let's take a little break, just relax you a little bit.
I think so. Yeah, I agree with that.
Put you on lockdown, put you in a jail cell for a little bit before you go back out onto the streets.
I agree with that. I think Lockdown for me was, with the title, I was thinking about, because in the next couple tracks they'll talk about I don't think they care much for judges or the jury. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, jail's just another one. It's part of the business. We don't care. So it's kind of like a reset. So with the lockdown, it's like, okay, I'm locked up, but like with this chill vibe, it's like you're kind of just like chilling, enjoying, doing your time, plotting your ways, whatever else for when you get out. So I agree with the break, but like in jail based off of all the activity that they're talking about in this album. So that's kind of the way I looked at it, but I could just be adding to it.
I could see that. So after we're in lockdown, we go into Three Little Putos.
Three Little Putos. Snoop Dogg does a track called Three Little Crips, and I meant to listen to that beforehand, but I forgot. But we have another song where they're letting the guns hum, and people are acting up.
Well, this one's a little bit different because there's some Spanglish going on.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They're rapping in Spanish and English, and it's a little bit of a parody on the Three Little Pigs story, but with Three Little Putos. But yeah, like you say, it's more gun raps.
When I saw that it was a parody on that, and I was listening to their first album, and the first track, if that sentence was for that first track on that album, I feel like it made more sense, because I don't know, Three Little Pigs, and then the pigs when they represent in the album, and the first album has to do with the cops and everything. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, like I saw that same reference, but I wasn't seeing, like, maybe it's just because there was 3 different type of putos that were doing a bunch of shit. Right. But so like I think the first one he was talking about the cops, and then he was talking about another one that tried to jack him for something. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I was like, okay, bitch ass. So yeah, I don't know, but legalize it. Number 9.
Another interlude, basically.
Another interlude. I like how, man, when I was in college, I took a drugs class, which is super cool. And, you hear that argument about how my teacher was pretty adamant about hemp needs to be legalized, because you have your marijuana, I'm not a weed head, so forgive me, but you have your 2 different kinds. Mm-hmm. The one that has no type of THC or debilitating properties, maybe I'll say it like that too. That one is also illegal, which doesn't make sense. And it's something that was used as clothing. In the track, they say that George Washington had a bunch of crops and was using it. Mm-hmm. They also bring up in the Bible that Genesis 1:12, I have given you all the seed-bearing plants on this earth to use. So I like how they bring up a bunch of arguments for the legalization. But also going back to hemp, where it's like, yeah, like people use it for clothing. They say that an acre of hemp makes more paper than an acre of trees. 14 times the amount of paper than an acre of trees would. Wow. And I thought that was really interesting. And I think it's kind of cool that, you have your stigma of these gangster rappers, like, all they're doing is talking about gats and shooting people up. But they're bringing, like, legit arguments to the legalization of weed, which a lot of people, I believe, agree with.
Yeah, you could tell they're passionate about weed and marijuana and all the different uses for it, and you can tell they're a little bit more educated on it than just, we're gonna get high. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They look at weed as more than just a drug, which of course they do use it as a drug to get high, but they understand that there's other uses for it.
Mm-hmm. And which is cool. And I misquoted. It's 4 times, not 14. Sorry about that. So we take a break from the gats and go back to smoking.
Yep. So after you legalize it, you're gonna want to take
Oh yeah, hits from the bong.
hits from the bong.
That's right, dude. Nice.
Dude, this is a classic song again. I love this sample. I love the beat. One of my favorite songs on the album.
I think we actually have the favorite or mutual thing of the favorite track on the album. This is definitely another one where I'm like, dude, if I smoked, I'm playing this.
Right.
And I love the beat.
Yeah, I love the beat. I love the step-by-step instructions for smoking from a bong, and then the ramifications of spilling your bong weed on your bong water on the carpet. It's gonna smell. You don't want that.
It's gonna smell like shit.
Yeah, you don't want your weed to smell stinky.
You don't want your carpet to smell stinky, but despite the smell from the water, it's still a smooth hit and it's great. So I just like that. I mean, I just think about like chilling, taking bong rips. I like at the end that it'll straighten your dick out. I was like, all right, interesting. But I love the laid back beat. It's a chill song.
Oh, it's super chill. Love that beat.
But when you take your bong rip and you still like all about that life, you gotta let people know that what goes around comes around, kid.
You gotta let people know you're not for play.
Yeah, I may be over here taking these rips, but I'll still fuck you up. So,
what goes around comes around, kid, is basically a cautionary tale for being in the hood. If you fuck with the wrong people, it's gonna come back to you, and it's gonna catch up with you. So yeah, another track, a lot of gun raps, a lot of they'll shoot you if you mess with them. And they're capable and willing, and they won't hold back.
Yeah, and what goes around comes around is check him and he'll check you back. He already said in a previous track that you gotta never turn your shoulder in the streets or in the hood and everything. But this was at this point in the album where I was like, I think I need to start making up stories. So this one, that's where I was like, all right, this dude gets drunk, he starts acting up, and Be Real has to set him straight. And again, like you get the feel that he doesn't have any fear of the consequences because he says, what's a judge and a punk ass jury? So you get locked up, you serve some time, you come out and you regulate again. So that's the story that I got out of that.
I could dig it. I'll take it.
I'll take
your story.
All right. I mean, piecing something together. A to the K, homeboy. A to the K.
Yeah.
Number 12.
Another gun rap song.
What do you think this one will be about, Matt?
I think it's about AKs.
Which are?
Assault rifles.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, saw that again from the title.
They're assault rifles from Russia, to be more specific.
I don't have any thoughts on that. I don't know. Digging up another story. Life started rough from a young age. He found 3 homies that he trusts, and they rob a house. Send Dog. Oh yeah, I was noting that I liked Send. I think this is the track where I thought Send Dog had really good, crisp lyrics that flowed well.
Definitely.
Thought he put his stuff together pretty well. But yeah, still centered around putting bullets in someone and robbing them for their pound. Probably their pound of paraphernalia.
Yep, pound of weed or pound of cocaine or pound of heroin.
Pound of meth.
Something like that.
Get a pound of meth.
But yeah, another, the weed and guns. A lot of that going on. Thinking about, like, now that we're talking about each song and how pretty repetitive it is. And then when you said earlier about them being rushed by Sony to create this album, I could see how they were under pressure to make an album, and they were just like, fuck, let's just make an album real quick. And Be Real is like, I can write lyrics about this all day. I'll just do this real quick. And it worked out for them. It paid off.
Definitely worked out. This is at the time, they're only their second
But I
album.
could see how Be Real would look back and be like, oh man, if I had more time, I could have put more content, or I could have created more stories, or made some songs about other topics, which of course I'm sure he does on later albums. You know, I'm sure not every Cypress Hill album is like this, but I could see them being under the clock and just being like, fuck it, let's put these songs out. Which is why there's not a lot of diversity on this album.
Yeah, to add on to that, the one album that he did say that he wished he did differently, I think at first he said "Till Death Do Us Part," and then as he was talking, he's like, "Oh no, wait, hold up! Actually, Rise Up." And he said the reason for that one was because they're sound-wise, he felt like they were a little bit more all over the place. There wasn't as much production from DJ Muggs, so he was saying that if he could redo one of them, he would add more production from DJ Muggs for Rise Up. But you know, that was just another thing I forgot to add in there. It was a good thing to throw in. Hand on the Glock.
Hand on the Glock. So if you don't have an AK on you, you can put your hand on the Glock.
Hand on the Glock is like your secondary.
Yeah, you ran out of ammo on the AK, now you got to pull out the Glock.
You know what? I think that's the track where this is the one where he mentions that he was in a shootout. He ran out of ammo, had to go back home to grab the chrome. And yeah, the dude got put in his place, I think, after that. So obviously he didn't, or else we probably wouldn't be listening to this track.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, not a criminal, just a dude with a bunch of homeboys, as he stated in the last song, of getting a bunch of people that he trusts. If you jack him up, he'll jack you back. I noted the line, "I'm not a bad guy, but I don't take advantage." I'm not a bad guy, but don't take advantage. I'm throwing out garbage to show me where the can is. I just thought that was funny. But, you know, kind of just doing his due diligence and taking care of people that are acting up.
Right.
So
it's a hard job.
It is, man.
I really like the beat. It's really funky. A lot of these beats have funky bass lines, which I really like. And they have a little bit of jazz elements to them as well, which is really cool. It's a great sounding album. Even with, you know, the gun raps, which can get old pretty quick, especially at the end of this album, like the last 3 or 4 songs. You know, it's pretty much all the same, but the beats keep you interested, and it keeps you involved in the album.
I agree with that. Have you ever had someone fuck up the program?
Fuck up the program?
Yeah,
I'm
man.
sure. People fuck up all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna start saying that. Like, hey man, they out here fucking the program up. But yeah, I think this is the one where he's talking about his apprentice fucking the program up, so he has to go tune him up. Just thought it was an interesting line where he says self-defense turns into offense, and in the lines that follow, you get this idea that he almost comes off as being misunderstood because they only see him with the gat.
Right.
And, you know, like, I'm not going to say, I'd like to think that people that get in, that some fights, they're not just senseless. Like, oh, you know, I'm going to go shoot one girl up today. Like, and I know that happens. And that's a big thing that we have a big discussion for American culture. But, you know, I wonder if, like, there are the cases where it's like, nah, man, like, it's looks wrong, but I'm really out here doing what I think is right in order to protect myself. So it just made me think of that and kind of giving him the benefit a little bit.
Right.
But, you know, but in the end, he says, should have put the Glock down. Now I'm in lockdown. And so I think that's also why I'm thinking of that interlude being like, oh, man, this is what jail time is like for them, of just chilling and like reevaluating and time out. Yeah. So that's what I got from that one. So,
and then the album ends with Break 'Em Off Some, which is a little more up-tempo. The album ends on a high note in terms of the pace of the song and the beat. It's a hard track. You know, it's more gun raps and getting away from the cops and things like that. I mean, I like the song. It's just, yeah, when you read the lyrics, like you said earlier, these last, 3-4 songs, you're just like, okay, I get it. You'll shoot people if they mess with you. I got it. I'm not gonna mess with you.
But that's what I'm saying. So I messed up. So this is the Apprentice one. But anyways, like, basically whether you're a pedestrian or a pig, he'll break you off a little something to deal with you and stuff like that. But yeah, man, like 14 tracks in, you're listening to it. So like my first couple listens, I was like, this sounds not. That's the thing, is like, this sounds nice. And I would get, the lyrics would kind of just get lost in the production. Yeah. But then when I did my second part, what I do for this pod, and I read the lyrics, then I was just like, okay, maybe that's why I'm like self-consciously not soaking this in, because it's just the same shit every time. If I'm thinking of a lyric, if I hear the term gat, that can go across any. I think there's maybe one song where they don't reference gat. That's in the beginning, they interlude, and maybe one other track actually.
Right.
So it's because they're all so similar with like salt here, pepper on this track, paprika over here, but just like a little bit of it. It's not enough for me to taste the difference between all the tracks, even though you are lacing it with different ingredients. Right. So different stories. Same
I agree
track.
with you. I mean, with this album in particular, it was a little bit more strenuous. Not that it's not in a bad way. I'm just, I could listen to this album 2 or 3 times and get everything I need to get out of it. You know what I mean? Whereas the last album we did, Gift to Gab, I needed a little bit more listens to really understand what was going on and really pay attention, and I enjoyed listening to it. Whereas this, it's like, it's cool beats and I get everything you're trying to tell me. I don't really need to listen to it again and again.
Because you're not telling me anything.
Right.
And I think that's, what we have in common is that when there are certain artists that we listen to, like you dedicate, like, okay, like if I don't want anything, maybe I'll listen to Mac Dre, maybe I'll listen to this person or this person. That list for me is very limited. So like I do, for a portion of what I listen to, I like good beats and I like some content in there.
Yeah.
And so I don't think, as I'm giving my thoughts on this now, I don't think Cypress Hill will be in my rotation for artists that, like, I don't really care what you say, it sounds great. But if it's on, if it's on at a party or a certain setting, like, I'll listen to it. But I'm not going to be like, oh shit, Cypress Hill just dropped, I need to go get that.
Right.
But I respect DJ Muggs' work. I really like Be Real's voice. I think it's unique, and Sendog does have some pretty crisp lyrics.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Cypress Hill to me they're a classic, legendary hip hop group, more for their energy and the type of music they put out early on in the 90s. And I feel like they've been riding that wave for a while, but that doesn't make their later albums any less good or bad. That doesn't make them bad or anything. But yeah, I'm not going to be putting on a Cypress Hill album and listening to it in full. I'm going to be taking songs here and there and putting them on a playlist, or like you said, if I hear a Cypress Hill, one of these songs at a party, or if I'm at a live show or something and a DJ's playing one of these songs before a set, I'd be stoked. I'll be like, yeah, this is dope. I'm into this.
It fits.
Yeah. Another thing, I would love to see them perform this album live. I think that would be fun, just because the energy would be there. Be a really dope live set.
And albums are so different when you hear them live too. Like I've been to a couple shows where I really like what I'm hearing, and then you buy the album, you're like, like that's not. I heard this. Well, that's not what I was looking for. So it's definitely a different energy. But as for this album, it just, I put down that it was like one-dimensional lyrically, but I really like the production to it. So that's kind of my
I think that's a good way to put it. That's a good one-dimensional, and then the production is maybe 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional. There's more going on, and it keeps you interested. But yeah, it's a cool album. I mean, obviously it's a classic. They've sold millions of albums with this, and they crossed over with this song. They probably brought a lot of people into the hip hop world through Insane in the Brain. You know what I mean? Probably me. I can't remember exactly. This might be one of the songs that I heard when I was a kid, and I was like, wow, this is dope. Let me get this CD.
Yeah, I agree with all that. But yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts, Matthew. That's what I think of this album. So
Those are your rap thoughts.
Those are my rap thoughts. So I mean, I'm glad that I listened to it because it's one of those. Cypress Hill is just one of those artists that you hear about. I've heard about growing up, and I feel like it's been around me. But similar to Mac Dre, it's like I've never taken the time to listen to them. I didn't have. My older brother probably did listen to Cypress Hill, but I wasn't around, when he did that. So it didn't come on to me. And I didn't know anyone that was like, yeah, man, Cypress Hill's dope. Like, there's people that had some tracks sprinkled here and there. But again, similar to Mac Dre, it's like, okay, I've heard these ones. But what about the rest of them? So this was a good opportunity to listen to them, listening to a couple other albums. And I'd be down to, check out the first album because I felt like lyrically Be Real was doing more. And to listen to an album where they did spend more time creating it, and maybe not what a rushed album is. Even though like you said, this album has some clout, it did really well.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it on Cypress Hill's Black Sunday. I wanted to thank all of our listeners out there on Google, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, and now Amazon.
Oh wow!
So if you're on Amazon, props to you. That's dope. But yeah, definitely hit us up on social media as well: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we are now on Reddit as well.
Reddit crew they've been showing love, so that's been cool.
Yeah, hit us up on Reddit. We're always down to chat with you guys. Definitely check us out on YouTube. We have some video clips on there. We can actually see us talk about the albums live in the flesh, instead of just hearing our voices. So yeah, definitely check all of those platforms out.
Yeah, thanks for the love. Spread it, and I guess hear y'all next week. So, something like that.
Yes, sir. Peace.